It's the 21st of September 2022. We have multiple strandings in between, I'll show you, Tasmania and Australia. And I guess King Island is, so we have around 230 pilot whales, long-finned pilot whales, and 14 sperm whales have come ashore. From what I read, it appears, now we've been covering this for years and years since this phenomenon had exploded. And say 2015, 2016, 2017 strandings, large strandings of pilot whales were uniformly contributed to starvation. And it's hard to wrap their mind around how the industries have control over things. This that's one of the pictures up there. It's a serious event. Half are dead. They're in the middle of nowhere, so tonight's going to be a rough night on the survivors, I'm sure. This is a radioactive plume covering the planet from the France's model, official government model, of 16 days. 16 days. So it doesn't matter where you're to. It doesn't matter where the animals are to. And of course, whales are migratory. They could run out of food 2,000 miles away and can't find anything to use up all their blubber. So this is one of the many models from 2011 of... Now, this model is based on venting of radioactive materials. So what we done, because there was a lot of reports of mass die-off, this is Western Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. I've done the research expeditions year after year. And so this is what it normally looks like. Incredible diversity. In 2011, January and February, this is what it would have looked like. Now, there's a big tide exchange here of 19 to 20 feet or so. So there's an incredible amount of life there. And it's well catalogued, well researched, well understood. The entire coastline would look, that's an emblematic low tide picture to your left. The pictures to your right are from research expeditions showing over 6 years, repeated research expeditions. The species didn't come back. Not only were they wiped out the tidal zone, they failed to repopulate the coastline. This is about 10 miles from Alaska. We're on probably one of the most outer northerly islands in Canada. And Dundas Island Group. You can see the rocks are actually naked, which is pre-Fukushima was considered inconceivable. There's 27,000 islands in that part of Canada, and they all look like that. Stunning. So this is after pictures to your right. We repeated it year after year. The species didn't come back. That's an extinction event. And it's caused by radioactive fallout, not by the actual dumping in the ocean. Constant hemorrhaging into the ocean is nothing to be ignored. It's catastrophic. And the whole planet and oceans get contaminated at the same time. This model is 20 days after counting the tsunami. The reactors were blown up over the next several days. And so it breaks the food chain. This is what we've been seeing. And so normally migratory birds, when we come along the coastline, they can get a meal over there, anywhere on the coastline, but now they can't. And that's why you see the massive migratory. We're going to talk about some of that coming up. So just try to give you context. I understand this is North America, but as we get through this, you'll see what I mean. So we had a serious event in Australia/Tasmania. What a cool name, eh? Tasmania. You lucky bunch of blokes. Have been having quite a lot of significant mass die-offs, particularly pilot whales. They got a bit of a reputation pre-Fukushima, but not a serious reputation. We see this even here on the coastline. We're on to, there was 15 washed up, and they cut the thyroid glands out. And my Geiger counter was showing 1,000 counts per minute. Okay, so for those who are not familiar, I just showed you research expeditions over years and how Fukushima has impacted the Pacific Ocean. But remember, the Pacific Ocean, the biggest on the planet, creates tens of thousands of kilometers of clouds every day, which is sucking up radiation. And so when the radiation hits the ocean, immediately the most vulnerable species is the phytoplankton, which is the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. And then it's suspended from the surface to the ocean floor, probably permanently, because it's still coming out and still being hemorrhaging from nuclear power plants, fuel pools worldwide. Okay, so let's go back to 2015. In 3 weeks, 5 dead whales have beached along the northern California coast. In 3 weeks, 5 whales. And so in 2015, you won't see it in any of these headlines I'm going to show you, won't see the word climate change a single time, okay? It's totally something new, something strange. This is scientists now, mystified. It's kind of eerie. What's the odds of 2 dead whales in the same place? That was considered a big deal in 2015. It was happening in 2014, certainly. But it was considered like there was no database being built about it. So what I'm going to show you is a collection of all these weird reports. This being probably the strangest one. The International Atomic Energy Agency standards are based on natural harmless emitters, not uranium or plutonium or cesium or anything else. It's based on potassium or something harmless. That's quite the revelation. Besides the fact that they're a corporation, part of UN, which is the military-industrial complex, right? 195 militaries. Name a bigger one. No such thing as a safe level. That's not just true for humans. Believe it or not, whales and elephants and everything else are vulnerable to this stuff. They bioaccumulate and end up with chemotherapy because they produce so many white blood cells. And so there might be food there, but they can't uptake the nutrition anymore. They're not hungry. Inhaling just one that's just one of the many things, right? Inhaling just one radioactive particle can cause cancer. So imagine the food chain, because we're way up the food chain, right? So imagine the food chain getting a particle. And you can put 2 million particles on the head of a needle, but you can't see them. You might want to ask yourself, how many do you need to boil a pot of water? But they're so harmful. And so the problem was, when you took the fuel out of the reactor and put it in a fuel pool, it's still split in those atoms. That it would split every day for 1 million homes, except now there's no containment. So each day there's this new batch of little demons released into the environment that'll float around for millions of years, bioaccumulating in the food chain. So inhaling just one particle, everything from a meltdown, by the way, is hot particles. Should be treated as a hot particle. And here's an example of that. Over 4,000 becquerels a kilogram in the fog. It's airborne. It's reliberated back into the air many different ways. It's brought back to the surface by plants. It's radioactive pollen. Irreversible heart damage for children, 50 becquerels a kilogram of cesium-137, which is just one of over 1,000 fission products you got to worry about. I'm just trying to build you a picture so you can appreciate why we're talking about whales and birds tonight. Okay, can I do that? Is that okay? Is that a good thing? It won't take long. We're almost through there. Well, you know me. Big drama entrance before we tell the story. It's not too bad. We're getting through it. Let's stop interrupting me. I would have been halfway through it if you hadn't kept interrupting me. How low doses of radiation causes heart diseases and strokes. It's not just humans, by the way. Chernobyl changed the sex ratio of all males and females and species in Europe. According to studies, children with over 11 becquerels kilograms of cesium start to see heart problems. Children. So pilot whales are not really big whales, right? So 1,000 becquerels a kilogram, you would see this leukemia, basically. Radiation and health specialists. Let me read that again for you, because Japan is shipping food at 1,000 becquerels a kilogram in some places of just cesium, by the way. So this will build a picture for you. Bear with me. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. You pretend all this doesn't matter, but when you put all this together, if only 5% of it matters, we got an issue, don't we? Tokyo at 29 million becquerels a square meter after a rainfall. It doesn't stop there, and it doesn't go away. It doesn't turn to fairy dust when the water puddles dry up, by the way. 276,000 becquerels a kilogram, 18 million becquerels a square meter, soil samples near Tokyo. I showed you Tokyo is contaminated, so near Tokyo is going to be contaminated. The drinking water, 300,000 becquerels a square meter in the soil in the forest. And now they're only acknowledging, ruthlessly I might argue, for cesium. They're not acknowledging the massive amount of other fission products has to be in the same sample. That's what they do. They'll extrapolate mathematically all kinds of harmful fission products that have to be in the same sample. 919,000 becquerels a square meter. These are atomic decays that'll trigger an immune response in all species. A 50-year-old agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency has effectively gagged the World Health Organization from telling the truth, health risk of radiation. But the IAEA and the World Health Organization are subsidiaries of United Nations. It's absurd. But so Chernobyl, they closed 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, and the United Kingdom, almost 3,000 miles away. 400 are still closed today, 36 years later. very harmful, and can cover, like I say, change the sex ratio of everything in everybody and every species in Europe. Because, do you get it? When you close 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, that's a huge amount of property, which means you cannot have safe drinking water. You cannot have safe air for several decades. You're supposed to evacuate Europe. Chernobyl was brutal. Nothing compared to Fukushima, but it's brutal. That's the scariest thing imaginable. 3 million children require treatment because of Chernobyl. Radiation illnesses are forever. And so is radiation. Decades later, in faraway Chernobyl disaster is still contaminating milk. We're getting there. Almost there now. Another 10 or so. Radioactive rain closed 130 schools in Korea. See, nobody closed the schools for the marine life and the birds and the insects and the animals. And then pretended that they're checking children for radio. No, you're good. Have a nice life. What a Geiger counter. The ultimate insult. Fukushima airborne plumes caused, plumes with an S, because it didn't stop, and still there now, caused significant disposition over North America, the West Coast U.S. 13% of all radioactive iodine was deposited over U.S. and Canada, and the rest of it was over the rest of the world. British Columbia got a big dose because the clouds come in, they got to hit the Cascade, the Rocky Mountains. They got to lose a lot of their payloads before they can get over it and contaminate the rest of the continent. Contaminated seawater will circulate around the globe. It's like a huge cloth expanding every day. You can't destroy it, see? It's the ultimate plague. You can't destroy it. Even in an incinerator. Radioactive particles arrived far earlier than predicted for North America. And think about this statement here as the public, possibly worldwide, public worldwide, because they were out walking around in it. They didn't stay home like the South Korean children and the Taiwan kids, which done the same thing, right? When the heavy radiation was coming through, they said, no, well, give the kids a day off, stay indoors, and get rid of your boots and your jackets. And as the public, possibly worldwide, so as all the species, possibly worldwide, sicken over time, the truth will come out. We're just trying to nudge it out there ahead of everybody else. We want to make sure we know just who to point the finger at. New York Times, ocean life faces mass extinction. We may be on the precipice of a major extinction event. This is not isolated to the Pacific, unfortunately. This is just 20 days. It doesn't stop. So, gray whale population plummeted in 2016, along with their food. 6,000 whales in 5 years. They actually updated it to 7,000 whales that same year. Fukushima. So once again, the plume, this model from France is not based upon the actual inventory. It's only based upon venting. So imagine if it was based upon the tonnage of the reactor cores instead of just venting. It's contaminated marine snow covered the seafloor at least 2,000 kilometers from Fukushima at that point. Cesium, which means uranium, plutonium, everything else, remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. But in order to accomplish that, they had to kill off the phytoplankton, which is again the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. And sea spray, and then these rain clouds will come into your coastline, highly radioactive, will carry you to other continents. But I mean, with significant airborne, sustained worldwide for 11 years. The problem is we can't just keep pretending this is not part of the conversation. You can't have a future until you're a nucleolic or whatever. You're a nuke-tard or whatever. The nuclear industry is well aware this is the only thing that could possibly happen with power plants. So radioactive sea spray been shown to blow hundreds of kilometers inland. This is just another way that it's liberated from the ocean. And the ocean is saturated, but so is the ecosystem, of course, your forests, everything else. So you got to have a conversation. It's a terrible, horrific story. But we need to learn a couple of lessons here. We can't keep this pace on the planet. The planet is now saturated with anthropogenic man-made radiation. At some point, we're going to have to deal with it, which was supposed to be about 11 years ago. Fukushima melted fuel and drifting in the ocean and the land, lacks containment, ends up in the coastline, blows in the community, and humans and all the species, because the coastline is not completely populated by humans, there's species there. The species and humans get an exceptional dose, and the species are vulnerable because they're in the ecosystem. Like, we got no spider webs on the East Coast or spiders in your forest. This is 3 years in a row. It's because your forests have sucked up so much radiation. The tips of the plants is where a lot of the water gets drawn to make it grow more foliage and everything. Spiders can't tie onto it, so they're tying on to buildings and vehicles and shovels and garbage cans, whatever. But they can't tie on to trees and bushes that are right at their fingertips, so to speak, because of the radiation and sensitivity. This stuff is pulsing energy every second. Just because we can't perceive it don't mean, for sure some vulnerable species are. Put a plant seeds by your modem for your internet, and they won't sprout. So even that kind of emissions, singles, is very harmful, but the industry decided that just don't care. Health harm goes on for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years from the just liberating from the ocean. Same as salt, right? Insects 200 kilometers from the ocean have a more salt in their diet, so to speak. They're acclimated to more salt because we already studied that. See? And radiation is liberated the same way as sulfur is from the ocean. It's important. Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. The EPA describes it as 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. I used to say 1 billion all the time, but it's actually 2 billion. Xenon-133 in Washington at 450,000 times above detection levels. You would have similar uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontium. Okay, here we go. Starvation. This was the first story I had last night after the show. All right. Of course, starvation caused the death of a whale found at Sealine. And it was a humpback whale, I believe. Ministry's Environment, Climate Change. Now, I was just tooling around. Now, remember, inhaling it, drinking it, consuming it, bathing in it, like marine life and ducks and everything, There's exposure by a factor of 1 trillion. So I seen this one and I was, wow. It's probably all young males and they starved to death. That's what we've been seeing happening in groups, right? I'll show you the headlines actually coming up. 14 sperm whales found dead in mass stranding on Australia Island. I was trying to wrap my mind around it. And I was, well, they only had a few pictures and they weren't from good angles. You couldn't really tell. 14 whales washing up. And think about the word washed up. Washed up. Not beach, not strandings, but washed up. Which meant they died. What did they die of? Together. Was there more? Because usually only 10% washes up. Washed up dead. On Australia's island north of Tasmania. But not by much on top of that. Mass stranding location on Tuesday. Investigate the whole deaths. All whale strandings remain a mystery. Wildlife scientist Vanessa told BBC. We don't exactly know why they happen. There are lots of opinions, though. I can tell you what, and you'll see. It's possible that the potential bachelor pod of sperm whales misnavigated. You know, sperm whales, they're like a gigantic squid. Misnavigated. Whales that are born in the ocean for generations and generations. Misnavigated. Or by following, and I gotta just throw everything at the wall now, by following a sick or disoriented leader. Now, there's no legacy of that pre-Fukushima. Just post-Fukushima, there's lots of it. And for a lot of people that are not familiar with the topic, 11 years is forever. But whales existed before 11 years ago, I swear. I absolutely swear on my pet hamster's grave. So King Island, by following a sick or disoriented leader, or the animals could have been startled into shallower water. That's a new one, actually. I don't know if I heard that one before. I think that's a new one on me. We'll give them a F+ for originality on that one. Now, the head is kind of peanutted, isn't it? Look at that. And peanut a head, because normally when they die, they bloat on top of that, right? But a peanut head is starvation. Pilot whales don't have flat heads, by the way. And they're not decomposing, so they should be exploding. Yeah. Mass strandings for whales and dolphins occurs regularly in Tasmania. All the time, Dana. Since Fukushima, of course. They had a few strandings over the last century that could be explained natural phenomena, right? Because the ocean was full of them at one time. But every month, an average of every 2 or 3 weeks, because they're at the end of the world. The species are trying to escape the radiation. They're emaciated. The public on King Island is encouraged to keep their distance. Oh, does the Queen own all the carcasses in Tasmania too, I wonder? And not interfere with the deceased beached whales. Don't interfere. Think about this headline, 2016, ongoing fish famine. The dearth of food across the ocean. A severe fishery implosion on top of it. Looks grim. It's hard to watch. The supply's been low since 2011. 14 young sperm whales. 2 years ago, 470. We covered it, of course. 470 long-finned pilot whales were found beached on sandbars off the Tasmanian west coast in the largest mass stranding on record in Australia. And the largest on record. You're going to hear that a lot here on this broadcast, unfortunately. Plan on conducting aerial surveys of King Island surrounding waters to check for other whales. Never heard that before either when it comes to sperm whales, just for pilot whales. And you always seem to find them for some reason. Scientists, West Coast bird die-off is the biggest ever recorded. The stomachs are completely empty. A bird can cover a lot of distance. There's no good going to the coastline. That's stripped. I showed you that at the beginning. Normally go to the coastline, get a scarf, and that's the end of it. Deaths could reach hundreds of thousands. A host of other freakish... I'll get more to that. So, they were flying and they found 230 more whales, apparently, beached in Tasmania. So they're here, and the sperm whales are King Island. So there's roughly 230. Half of them are dead. And Tasmania is on the end of the world. And for 2014, 15, 16, 17, they freely admitted in almost every story that they had starved to death. It's very hard to get actual pictures of them. These whales are not very big in the first place. Mink whale, we got some good pictures tonight, mind you. Sonoa Fisheries, mink whales, unusual mortality event. There's an unusual mortality event for mink whales, North Atlantic right whales, humpback whales, killer whales. At least 6 emaciated fin whales wash up dead on the French shores. And well, fin whales are pretty thin anyway, but that's emaciated. Six of them. U.S. biologists probed the death of 70 emaciated gray whales. Gray whales are different than fin whales for nuclear scientists and stuff like that are out there. 70 emaciated. It was actually over 7,000. Scientists are worried 1,000 gray whales died so far this year. Study reveals nearly 5,000 dolphins and whales stranded in the United Kingdom. Same as Tasmania, where you're having these abnormality amounts of strandings. But if you're only going to go back a few years in the records, 6 or 7 or 8 years, because you got all these new people coming in, oh no, it's been happening for years. It's always like that. And then people don't know any better, and they start regurgitating the same lies. Because that's not normal. None of the stuff I'm showing you tonight is normal. The highest number of strandings in a single year was recorded in 2017 with 1,000. 1,000. The highest in history of any species. Kept getting broke over and over and over since Fukushima. Second mass stranding of whales in Tas. Too friggin' lazy to put Tasmania there. Because they don't. So that was a different view of... It was quite unusual for sperm whales to wash ashore. It's quite unusual for... Well, it must be pretty unusual for 14 wash ashore way up in the middle of nowhere in the end of the world. Beautiful place. It's just stunning, beautiful, wonderful people. Except for the industry, of course. Moving the whales. You started seeing a lot of this. This is always a bad sign. Moving the whales' traditional food sources, the Dr. Maynicki said. They were going different areas and searching for different food sources than their instincts tell them. And when they do this, they're not in the best physical condition because they might be, starving. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Hello, anybody home? Hello, Charlie. 230 whales strand on a Tasmanian beach. 230 whales stranded on, half was dead. The first day, there was no pictures, and it was just, every story was an opinion. Had to wait for the day to actually get the whole story, by the way. More of the whales are expected to die overnight. And similarities between the strandings and the last one, 2 years ago, the same species in the same location at the same time of year, are unusual and concerning. The same species in the same spot at the same time of the year, almost exactly 2 years later. Not pre-Fukushima. This is all since Fukushima. This is normal since Fukushima. They keep saying that too. Following a sick or, again, the garbage can diagnosis, following a sick or disoriented leader, the giant island itself could be a navigational hazard for the animals that use echolocations. What the hell is my echolocation hidden? What is it? I gotta go back where it came from. I'm just gonna beach. I never seen an island before. Freaked me up. Hey, what are you guys all beach for? I've never seen an island before. She's supposed to be a doctor too, right? Scary. Doctor, is it hard to take my tonsils out? Well, first we gotta remove your heart. Don't worry, you can live for a few seconds without it. The giant island itself could be a navigational hazard for animals. I just don't know how to respond to something so stupid. I'm going to have to get her a picture and sell a t-shirt. If you see it driving a car, get off the road. It's common to kill. Some 230 whales beached in Tasmania. This is the pictures. Let's go into the big shop beach screen. And so it's true that these whales will beach in groups, right? But, we've been on the planet a long time. And we've been recording this for a long time. Now, if every time a whale was going to die and beached and everybody else beached too, there would be no whales by the time we got to 2022. Because they would all kill themselves. Kamikaze-like. Whales won't stop dying in New Zealand since Fukushima melted down. That's what the headlines should say. And bless his heart for doing what he can do and everybody else. We send hugs to you folks for doing the moral and ethical things. We're super proud of you folks. You're definitely our heroes. I wish we could go there and help you, but we can't. It's a desperate job. It's not your fault. I'm not talking to you folks. Nothing but the utmost respect and admiration. That's a terrible sight no matter how you look at it. But whales will beach themselves if they can't stay afloat. And if they're all starving, because they all eat the same time. And so if one's starving, they're all starving. What was the verse in the song? A girl can't stay angry. She's dancing on the dance floor. You've never seen an angry girl dancing on a dance floor? Hey, you bastard. Which is kind of true, right? I'm not saying go and shoot at their toes to get them dancing every time they're angry, and that's going to solve it. But if it's a marshmallow gun, you never know. So they would have no problem getting back into the water on their own if they wanted to. Did all of them wash up on the beach? So this should be happening everywhere all the time. Every time a whale gets sick, what we've seen, and then we're seeing humpbacks and fin whales and sperm whales and everything else, they're beaching too, right? It's not just the pilot whales anymore, is what I'm trying to say. And pilot whales weren't doing it all the time. Every second Thursday, what are you guys doing? We're going to beach on some beach tonight and die. You coming? Nah, I left soup on the kitchen stove. There's no safe level of radionuclides exposure. Whether you're a fish, or a bird, or a whale, or a human, or a dinosaur, or a unicorn, there's no safe level, period. Former U.S. government official. I can finally take my hat off and tell the truth. The elephant in the room is Fukushima radiation when it comes to it's not just the Pacific Ocean animal die-off. It's not just, we already killed the Pacific Ocean pretty quickly. This stuff spread right around the world, airborne, as I showed you earlier. Good, more pictures. 2 Danas and more pictures. I'll get there. When you zoom in, you lose a bit of or a lot of the detail, but at least you can zoom in, right? And get some context. 2016, sickened animals, unlike anything doctors ever seen, eating themselves from the inside. Cancers, liver, pancreas, intestines shut down, infested with parasites, immune to antibiotics, unprecedented catastrophe to cause over 200,000 dead sea lions. Oh, Fukushima. If you don't put it in the equation, you're in denial, and you're doing a disservice to yourself. You have to live with that for the rest of your life. Nothing easy about that stuff. Giant whales found piled up dead on the West Coast beach. The second largest animal on the planet. It's never happened. It's extremely unusual. It's very rare. 2015. Go ahead to 2022. Should have been here last month. So many recent. See, and how many times did I show you the word climate change in those headlines? None. Because it was like 2018 before they start shoving it in every single story, no matter what it was. Over a dozen sperm whales die in Australia's mass stranding. 50-foot sperm whale the picture they're showing is a 50-foot whale in San Francisco in 2015. And look at that. That's emaciated in 2015. You never see a picture like that pre-Fukushima, by the way. Members of the public remind it's an offense to interfere with dead animals, including being in possession of parts of a dead whale, and are asked to keep their distance like good slaves. An adult sperm whale, among the biggest mammals on Earth, up to 39 feet and 57 tons. What is that, 160,000 pounds or something? Experts, I'm sorry, 150. What was I thinking about? Because I done the math on one of them, that's why. I can't. Anything over 100 ton is just mind-boggling. We should treasure them, is all I'm saying, right? The other one I was talking about will come up in a little bit. Experts told ABC News the most common cause of stranding is misadventures. Yeah, they were out late last night on the way home, all hungover, ran up on a beach. Animals get into trouble. We're not talking about your childhood, buddy. We're talking about the whales. It's a complex bit of coast, and stupid whales can't navigate it. This is... They said, who's the stupidest person in the building? Can we interview you? That's 10 sperm whales die after stranding on the Yorkshire coast in the United Kingdom. That's 2019. It's December, I think, 2019. You guessed it. All 10 of them turned out to be, they were the same as the ones currently in New Zealand, Tasmania. They were all emaciated. All 10 of them. The biggest mass stranding, I showed you earlier, right? They've had 5,000 in the last few years. The British Divers Marine Life Rescue. To say I despise that organization, not the people on ground zero, but the organization, the spokespersons and stuff like that is what I'm talking about. Obviously not the people that are out there doing the work. Said all 10 of the whales had died after getting lost off the coast. That's why it keeps no sharp objects around me, because I wouldn't have an eyeball left at this stage. They got lost off the coast, Dana. Of course they did. They're whales. What do they know about the ocean anyway? We're almost certainly looking for food. Because it came out a few weeks later, they were emaciated. They got lost looking for food. It takes a long time, folks. It could take 2 months for a whale to lose all of its blubber and be so-called emaciated. It could cover 10,000 miles in that period without finding food, and that's why they're emaciated, see? Because the food chain got broken because of the nuclear industry. We're almost certainly looking for food, Dana. Up to 80 tons, which is 160,000 pounds. And I thought it was the other one, and I didn't keep that or create it when I went click. Because I don't always click twice, you know. I'm a pretty busy guy. Like the United Kingdom's, the divers are the only ones allowed to go near the whales. The whales all belong to the Queen, or Prince Charles now, I guess, right? They got a special name for it, too. Sperm whales are rarely seen off the UK coast because they hunt large squid. 16, 18, 25 feet squid, right? 6,000 feet below the surface. They're masters of the ocean, but they can't handle the sophisticated coastline of Tasmania. I know this is going to come as a shock to you people, but my research expeditions, there's 27,000 islands and millions and millions and millions of rocks below the surface that'll tear your boat open or tear the motor off the back of your boat. And I mean millions and millions of rocks that you can't see. And so to suggest that the whales can survive that, but they can't survive mean end of the world New Zealand, it's disappointing that people like that actually are being quoted. You couldn't find anybody stupider, obviously, so. This food was not abundant in the North Sea. Really, that's interesting. Many of the animals involved were in poor nutritional conditions. In other words, they starved to death. Next. And clearly would not survive if they had been refloated alive. They're emaciated. Largest animal on Earth found dead on the west coast, sick and emaciated, actually very emaciated. Most of the whales tracking for the last couple of years are not doing well. Food supply is being killed off. Whales stranded on the beach dies. That's a pretty descriptive. So the young whales were in very poor nutritional conditions. In a short period, 29 sperm whales in the North Sea beached because of starvation. And get a load of this. It wasn't just starvation, Dana. They had decompression illness. Because that's what they're talking about there, decompression illness. They're wicked, eh? The disinformation is just stunning. Decompression comes from compressed air. So you're saying the whales are taking down dive tanks and breeding compressed air now? That they got whales now are actually, never mind, I don't want to go there. So Tasmania, Australia. You can see Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Vietnam, Philippines. Obviously not that far to Japan. Tasmania itself. And so you're saying that the whales couldn't deal with that little island. It was just overwhelming for their echolocation. And so they said, the hell with it, we're going to commit suicide on the beaches. Good God, man. Go back to that university and get your money back. And don't try to get an education. You're not made for it. That's the problem with giving everybody an education is they learn to talk and then someone quotes them and just spoils me day. Mind-blowing die-off of seabirds from California to Alaska. That's some serious real estate. It's right through Canada, by the way. It's unprecedented. I'm baffled. Every bird we're seeing is starving to death. Catastrophic and unknown causes. So back to the mass whale stranding. Got a couple more pictures. These are stunning pictures. You know what they say about a family that feeds together is a family that starves together. It's really interesting because in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, they all starved to death. 2018, it was climate change. Looking a little thin, little nutritional depleted. Why do whales strand themselves, and why is this so common in Tasmania since Fukushima? That's the question you should be asking. They're not uncommon in Tasmania in the last 11 years. On this scale, they're not uncommon either, but certainly we haven't had one for at least 10 years. You know, since just after Fukushima. They can't help but lie. They're just going to, a lot of these people are just repeating the lie that was fed to them, right? Here's your job, you got to contact us for the press release. We'll send you the official narrative, and you can get your picture taken. Your kids can chop it out and put it in the scrapbook. Your poppy was on TV. Reports hundreds of whales stranded on the Tasmanian west coast in the state's second event in 2 days. Not just this week, but in 2 days. The first day was 14. There could be many more, but at least 14 were found. It's unusual to get them all. To show you that. Just Kings Island. Researchers say massive decline of fish is thrown off the ecosystem. Whale numbers dropping significantly. Squid disappearing, which of course the sperm whale is dependent upon. Another major die-off seen. Second mass stranding. The mass stranding is happening south of, Let me see what I'm looking for here. It's quite unusual for sperm whales. Same as United Kingdom. Isn't that weird? How weird is that? What a coincidence. So, now we're going to talk about seismic activity. And you do this all over the world all the time. So you should see pre-Fukushima, it was common, right? Same as this mass beaching with pilot whales. It should have been just constant every year pre-Fukushima, but it wasn't. So, and I read this a lot over the last couple of weeks because we've done another show not that long ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And a couple, right? We went out looking for spiders and we got skunked. There can also be natural geomagnetic changes happening that might impact the animals. Oh yeah, the solar flares. That's what it is. That's what they said, right? Solar flares. Remember that? Over the last couple of years, been a few of them. I like the British. Oh no, they got decompression illness from diving all day. They're so sincere too, right? They probably never even seen the ocean, the people that are saying on top of that. So just throw everything at the wall, like they do with their underwear, and see what sticks. Warm temperatures could also be changing the ocean currents, like Fukushima. And moving the whales' food sources, suggesting they're starving to death again. Going to different areas, searching for different food sources, a.k.a. starving, because, they might be starving. That's the oldest trick in the book. We've been seeing that escalate over the last couple of years in particular. They might not be in the best physical condition because they might be starving. Leads them to take more risk. I'm going to bite that swimmer. He looks a lot like a mackerel to me. 2 years ago, it was, we covered it. I can't remember top of my head. 600 whales in 2 days or something. In 2 spots. After being stranded. I hate the word stranding so much. 470 long-fin whales were found beached, and then another 200 the next day. I think. The biggest mass stranding on record in Australia. Broke the old record of the year a few months before by a couple of hundred. That's pretty good when it comes to whales. Usually if one whale becomes stranded, all the other give up the ghost at the same time. Not because they're stupid, no. Not because of emotional connections, Dana. Because of it. Well, look, if that was true, there wouldn't be a whale left on the planet. Because every time one gets sick and gonna die, all of them commit suicide. See, that narrative is... It's a garbage can diagnosis, right? It's just regurgitating something somebody in the industry sent out a memo. Hundreds of whales stranded Tasmanian west coast, and there's a lot of secrecy going on with this. A day after mass stranding on King Island of emaciated animals. And so this picture wasn't very good. Had to blow it all up from that picture there. But you get some context anyway. What do you got? The water's coming. They could float away if they wanted to. Many times. They're right in that spot where they're whales found dying off the Tasmanian coast 2 years since last mass death. Mysteries, hundreds of endangered whales. So this got a lot of traction all of a sudden today, last 24 hours. Right, 20th of September. That one in particular was when I first came across the story. I thought it was the old story from 2 years ago. And then I seen the date and I was like, holy shit. This is on right now as I'm talking. And it didn't show up in my search, because I search this every single day, and dead birds and stuff like that, right? Many different search terms on top of that. All, emaciated beers included. Beer attacks, all kinds of stuff. So this was the first time I got other pictures. That didn't work. Of the sperm whales. And this was the first pictures I think I seen originally today. And I wasn't sure if this was from... Yeah, this one is from 2 years ago. My apologies. That's from 2 years ago. Whales found dying off Tasmanian coast 2 years since last mass death. On Kings Island. And we don't know what's happened, she told ABC. She's getting a lot of traction, isn't she? And she almost got a different story for each TV. Expert. Been at the scene of various strandings over the years, but what caused it remains a complete mystery. We simply do not know why this happened. She got stage fright, eh? Forgot to regurgitate the official story. Oh, she's not going to get her little secret GI ring out of her Cracker Jack box. May be triggered by navigational error or the group followed one whale heading towards the shore. Again, this is a spokesperson for you, right? That's their official narrative. It doesn't have to make sense. Just when you get interviewed, just read whatever we sent you on your text message. So last night, video 12 hours later got an extra 5 seconds. So the last 2 digits are 26 now. Thanks, Google. Who knows what they put it? Extra 5 seconds is a lot for the lobbyists at Google that's certain my videos. Who knows what they got in there? 230 pilot whales stranded. And you don't know if these are dead or alive, because I would imagine lots going to die overnight. Half are apparently dead. Half appear to be alive, but they won't last. 2 years to the day that the same harbor was the country's largest ever mass stranding with almost 500, 470. So, but this hasn't been happening every year for hundreds of years or decades, but since Fukushima. This is an abnormality, which is, they're going to the end of the world, so to speak, see? And they don't find their species, and they can't do it no more. Still not fully understood. That's the theory at the moment. So it's just complete conjectures. It's just complete opinions. It's not even opinions now. It's theories based on memos. It's not unusual for groups between 20 and 50 pilot whales to run aground. Since Fukushima's not. 2017, there was a mass stranding of almost 700, which is huge. 2017 was a shit year for whales and birds and seals and sea lions and species. 337 whales beached in the largest stranding ever. And then Tasmania came along and stomped that one into the ground, didn't they? This is the Sealine whales, S-I-N or something. We'll see. Yeah, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. They're like, the S-E-I whales, sea. I don't know how you pronounce it from the... Do you think it was red tide? Killed 337 whales. If it was red tide, there'd be all kinds of other species washed up there too, not just whales. And whales breed oxygen, by the way. They're not dependent upon... So this is a story from 2016. I want you to understand, so puffins you think of in the millions, right? Millions and millions and millions, which is right. So when they find 250, they believe the actual numbers, dead puffins, got to be much higher, to the point that half the puffin population in the North Pacific may be dead because they found 250. It's the same as I showed 337 whales washing up in the same spot. Just like, what? How many sunk? How many washed up somewhere else? How many drifting away at sea? Okay, let me go. Now we're going to go through the burn down. How bad is this going to be? Okay, so I'm going to show you is because of Fukushima radioactive fallout. "100% death rates of baby seals in the California coast. None survived. Starving. Suffering from food shortages. Extremely thin, milkless mums." And it's getting worse. "Animals starving as the food chain continues to collapse." You think that don't apply to pilot whales for some reason? To the people that were writing those articles or perpetrating. By lying and sending out lies in the media, you're making sure your children and your friends and your families don't have a future. If that's what you're doing for a paycheck, you got to reevaluate your life. Immediately. You're not functional human anymore. You're a burden to the 8 million species. When you want to acknowledge stuff like Fukushima and have a conversation. Because it's a conversation and a half. "Animals starving as the food chain continues to collapse. Mass starvation event plagues the West Coast." Animals starving as the food chain collapses. Journalists, nobody talks about Fukushima anymore. All fish sucks too, man. There's almost no more fish. The ocean is dying. It's 2015, by the way. It's terrifying. Fish are just too hard to find. Sickened animals are like anything doctors ever seen. Cancers, liver, pancreas, intestines shutting down. Experts, Pacific food web is crashing. Where's the fish? Where'd they go? You could equate it with a war zone. Food shortage along the entire continental shelf. What do they all have in common? Everything happened after Fukushima, see? And so to not have it in the equation is dishonest. And you're killing the planet. You're not trying to come up with a solution. You're just trying to get a paycheck every Friday at a terrible cost. California sea lions dying from organs falling out of place. Tumors. Accumulation of nastiness inside their bodies. Scientists reveal details of unprecedented mass mortality on the West Coast in the summer of 2011. The airborne plume was brutal. You can go into my playlist and you'll come across an absurd amount of it. Many millions of deaths before the sea star wasting syndrome, which is, they couldn't identify it. With all the sophisticated equipment at all the major universities and institutions, they couldn't come up with a picture of the pathogen or the virus that was responsible. Because starfish uses ocean water like humans use blood. If the ocean water, if their blood is full of radiation, Well, I was out with the dive fleet when they were freaked out because the starfish legs were crawling away on their own. Totally spooked them off the ocean floor, a fleet of them. Killer whales dying along the Pacific coast, sick and emaciated. Killer whale can eat up to is known to eat, I should say, up to 340 odd species. Now they're gone on a hunger strike. Population at the lowest levels in decades. No babies born in the last couple of years. Researchers predict the West Coast killer whales will exceed 1,000 becquerels a kilogram. That's chemotherapy shit right there. folks. Over 10 times the government limited the kooky, batshit, lunatic, mass murdering, scum degenerate Japanese nuclear industry. $50 dead seals, sea lions, whales, walruses, stranded in Alaska. This was after the ice melted. There was a big pulse release at the same time into the ocean. Dozens of seals suffering baldness, skin sores. We approach seals, wild seals out in the middle of nowhere. Groups of them go right up to them. They don't even run away from you. No skin, no fur on them. And we shared these pictures with everybody, and they took down my site when we were looking for spiders last year, because Google's scared of spiders, apparently. It's the airborne was the biggest issue. The airborne plumes covered the entire planet in just a couple of weeks, and it didn't stop coming out, even today. Surge in marine mammal strandings. It's weird. The biggest fear is if this is everywhere along the coast, which it was. Whales, dolphins, sea lions, birds washing up in numbers. Many thousands likely dead. That's what we were seeing. They were constantly trying to conflate it with domoic acid. And they worked really hard after over a couple of years. All of the die-offs, when they finally come out and admitted it wasn't domoic acid. It could be because they killed the biomechanics of the ocean, the ecosystem. I showed you that at the beginning of the show from the research expeditions to Alaska, repeatedly year after year. That was some brutal stuff there, folks. Continues trend of whales washing ashore. Starving, emaciated, too weak to swim, hemorrhaging. Gee, does it sound familiar? Entire generations of baby sea lions dying. It's incredible. So unusual. There's no explanation for it. A cart's filled with emaciated dead bodies. The ocean is turning into a desert. We went out and done the research. We showed this. Crystal clear water. You can see the ocean floor anywhere. That's not how an ocean works. More have washed up in the last few months than the entire recorded history combined. What's going to happen next? Unprecedented die-off of nearly all endangered marine mammals. Leukemia-linked disorders in seals. Of course it is. They're expecting it too. Water offshores lacking things like anchovies, sardines, squid, krill, mackerel, herring. Inside are just masses of yellow cancerous tissues. I see they took DCA off Amazon.com. You can walk, if you're in America, you can walk in any pharmacy and get it, folks. Manatee dying in droves on both coasts of Florida. Deaths of pelicans, turtles, dolphins increasing. Scientists fear it's the beginning of a devastating ecosystem collapse. 2013. Experts agree many species of wildlife and fisheries are endangered globally due to large releases of radioactivity. Has Fukushima entered New Zealand's ecosystem? I showed you the airborne plumes models from government agencies earlier. The largest disease outbreak we know of ever in the oceans. Potential for global extinction. Global extinction. Is New Zealand on this earth? If it is, it's endangered too, guys. These emissions from these multiple, the only case we have it on the entire planet of multiple reactors melting down at the same time. There's nothing else on the planet that we can compare to it. It's the ugly stepbrother of the holy grail of oh shit accidents. It's called Fukushima. Worst you've ever seen, said Alaska boat captain. Talking about Fukushima. Salmon never showed up, and the ones that did had lesions and worms and parasites. Crabs were easily damaged. A lot of dead catch, herring, cod, halibut, pollock. Catches are dropping off the cliff. You can't even get snow crabs down there anymore now. They just disappeared overnight. Scary problem on the California coast, 2014. Maybe no food anywhere where Fukushima landed. They get leukemia. They can't eat food, even if it's there. Lettuce from U.S. West Coast, top Chernobyl's contamination. Dangerous alpha radiation detected. Significant health risk to areas thousands of kilometers away. Fears marine life is being poisoned by nuclear material flown from Fukushima. Festering radioactive plague contaminating the food chain. And TEPCO is not a decommissioned authority. They don't build plants, they don't fix them. So why? Because you got left TEPCO in charge, so you don't blame the nuclear industry, you blame TEPCO. When the people that are responsible is the nuclear industry. Try building a nuclear power plant without the IAEA and see how far you get. Fukushima reactor site engulfed by steam. And this is really important because it showed this is not wafering. This is like a fog that you can see. It's a lethal dose everywhere. The Geiger counters were maxed out at 10 sieverts per hour. 3 is a killer. When your whole site is bathed in a visible plume emanating from cracks in the earth, from explosions down deep, this just ends up in the environment and blows around the planet. And the numbers we're talking about, I disrespect the nuclear industry greatly for what they knew they were going to do. And passing this on to the inbreed and entitled generation was guaranteed disaster. The people in Japan are responsible for poisoning the world's food chain. They got to stand up and take action. The buck's got to stop somewhere. Die off of mammals, birds, reptiles. So many diseases afflicting such a wide variety of animals. Names are out of a science fiction thriller. Hemorrhagic diseases, Slovakic plagues. Mysterious phenomenon off the U.S. West Coast. Fish disappeared. Whales are absent. No krills. High rate of egg failures among the birds. There's nothing there, just a lot of clean, empty water. 200-year wait at Fukushima. So many uncertainties. The technology don't exist. No viable methods. Fukushima is an apocalyptic disaster, says a nuclear scientist, that will haunt future generations. And the world now in an experimental lab with humans as guinea pigs. Fukushima is a global threat to the human health. So you can't do that to the human health globally without the species too. And you only got to break certain parts of the food chain to affect the biggest species out there. They're the most vulnerable. Major concern for the public health of coastal communities. That's okay, I live interior. Self-centered you. Die off of birds on the entire West Coast, covered in dead bodies. Never seen anything like it. Ignore it. A canary in a gold mine. They're not scrambling. I was scrambling. The people that supported me were scrambling to find out the truth. Fukushima is a major global threat to all living flora and fauna. It kills the bacteria and the fungus. And species can't exist, right? Plague along the west coast is biologists fearing extinction of species. Take your kids. See them before they're gone. And too late now, isn't it? Plutonium at 1 million becquerels a cubic meter detected off the coast of Fukushima. Scientists remember it's not just cesium that's released. It's a pretty rare one, isn't it, to have them actually acknowledge it? Remember that sailor who sails $1 million yachts around the world in races? Drinks a $500 champagne? And so he used to love sailing because of all the species. Nothing alive over 300 miles. No turtles or sharks or dolphins or birds. Saw a whale that appeared helpless. And his story went viral, but they didn't mention Fukushima. Top scientists, Fukushima is the most terrifying situation you could imagine. I seen a paper which says bye-bye Japan and evacuate North America's west coast if Unit 4 goes. And Unit 4 went right away, too. Should abandon a continent because your power plant broke down. You can pretend everything I showed you tonight is not true. All you want. You're just pretending. New and improved version of the original atomic plague is spreading. The truth is so incomprehensible, it's easier to pretend it doesn't exist. That's marine scientists for you right there, baby. Professor, Fukushima has emerged as a global threat. Bioaccumulation expected to keep rising for decades. Really? How does it stop? The radiation never goes away. Who's the most vulnerable? Oh, that's right, the species. Work at Fukushima to go on for 10,000 years. When you put all this stuff together and look at the big picture, now I've become death, the destroyers of worlds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we can play that. Let's find it. I think I can. I'm sure I always like listening to it. Sometimes I struggle trying to find it though. I'll have to go relabel everything. And try that. Please, 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 please. Come on. Searching. I'm still searching. It's just I got too much, right? Oh. The very first one, look at that. Check the volume first, Dana. Don't. Oh, it was all the way up to. I'll adjust it in my end for you folks. Just.
We knew the world would not be the same.
Let's start that again.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
Now have become death, the destroyers of worlds. Fukushima plume spread worldwide. And of course it did. That's another model of it. It's a death plume for the species. Officials admit deadly Fukushima meltdown cover-up. 2016. We lied about meltdowns. It was a cover-up. It's a grave issue. It's an unprecedented nuclear disaster. It's an unpardonable breach of trust. It's 100% the biggest breach of trust in the academic world in history after tobacco. It dwarfs it, right? New York Times, ocean life faces a mass extinction, and we may be on the precipice of a major extinction event in the marine world. Nuclear engineer, I agree, Fukushima can be an extinction event. It's a myth that the disaster is contained. The negative impact of the accident spread throughout the world. And Australia has been polluted already, right, by the United Kingdom. They have the highest cancer rates per 100,000. United Kingdom waited for the wind to blow across Australia before they set off their nuclear bombs. They didn't travel all the way down there because they liked Australia. They traveled down there because they wanted to wait for the wind to blow across the country. And the models I show you covers Australia and New Zealand each time. And so we done the whole night. I showed you all the documentation for the poll. Have emaciated whales showed up worldwide since Fukushima radioactive fallout broke the ocean's food chain? Because you can only put 100 characters there, so I had to put food chain into one word. And we got 40 likes and 40 votes. That's the strangest number I've ever seen, by the way. Pretty good. Not too bad. Well, like I'm metered. The lobbyists at YouTube have me on a meter. I can only get so many likes or so many views. If I can hit 300 views, it's a bit of a miracle. Probably means I got 3,000 basically. It's just done. They do it to a lot of people. They admit that, right? The old motto of Google, don't be evil. That was to get you to drop your guard, see? Well, the people that sold YouTube to Google, they're human trash. Yes, let's play that. So we picked up a scaler for the compressor. A scaler removes dirt and rust and everything. And we got a lot of equipment with rust on it. And the other option is to use chemicals. And you know how I am with chemicals. It's not happening, right? And I got to get it done this fall. I can't wait till next spring to do all this. And so the big flat deck, I got to do that. I got to do under the truck, obviously, after 3 years down here in salt heaven. And then the motors, all of the, it's just so much to get done. It's okay. I'm a sucker for punishment, right? And so the cancer didn't go down to my bowels. Still got to get an MRI. But it's definitely not got down into my bowels, he said. So that's a huge win for me today. If there's such a thing in a win in this stuff. Got to get that MRI. And so right now we're scheduled to get the surgery, but we got to get that MRI first before I'm doing anything. Let's see what happens as this plays itself out. Oh yeah, and remember a couple of weeks back when we changed the rear brake pads and drums? The parking brakes, a piece came off. Remember that? I forgot about it. I forgot to order the pads. I'm an idiot. And so I ordered them today, thank goodness. And that's the last thing I done today. I had to run out and do that. So they're ordered in. And so I got to wait till I put them on to find out if that's the issue, if it's the last issue, right? We should have, the part for the boat didn't come in. That hopefully they're going to call me tomorrow or Friday. They said 7 to 10 days. Typically, it means it could come in a lot quicker. See, it's just, you can put it in an envelope, right? It's not like it's got to get a transport truck. And you're paying a freaking fortune for $435 is what we paid for that. The auxiliary control valve. James donated another 130 last night, which is why we got the scaler and Steve Young too, right? And Steve Young, I seen Steve Young in the comments section talking about don't call it clean water, which is right. It's clear water. It's not clean water because it's radioactive water. It's a great point. I'll try to remember that. And so I'm totally exhausted. But we got an important show in tonight, so that's a huge deal. Port Angeles, Thinker, Peaceware. Hey, everybody. What do we got going on here? Dale P. John Shiflett. Stephen Young. Hi, Stephen. No, clear water is frightening. Water's not supposed to be clear, right? William Sanford. Timber Traveler. James Lucy can't even smell the ocean. That's such a frightening statement because it's true, see? It's a terrifying statement. Kevin Blanche, should have called Kevin earlier. Never thought about it. I did think about it. I forgot to do it. Angel's Place. Try to remember tomorrow night for Thursday night show, last show of the week. I'm pretty stiff tonight, I've noticed. I'm just doing a quick shout out. We're going to end the poll. I'll put that up on the screen in a second. Stephen Gadd, Wayne. Don't get the booster, folks. For goodness sakes. We're almost up to the names here. I'm just looking for any name to quick shout out. My eyes are not working and I got to put glasses on. That's pretty rough. Savannah's fourth. Daryl Murray. Yeah, let's end the poll here. Ending poll, sir. Me too. Have emaciated whales showed up worldwide? Well, I laid out my case. I double dare anybody to debunk it. It's a joke, by the way. Nobody's going to, we know that. It can't be done. And so whoever voted no obviously didn't watch any of the video. You're not a team player. There's a Geiger counter cruising. I'm not paying attention. Oh, I'm looking forward to sleeping tonight. I'm looking forward to following up on the stories tonight of the whales to see what other kind of bumbling propaganda they're going to be posting. See everybody tomorrow night. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. And a great day tomorrow. It's a great day to be alive. Treasure it. I had 2 trolls, did we, Kevin? I'll find him after, unfortunately. Dana Nasana took a day off. I hope he's doing okay. He's pretty rare to miss a day, that feller. Juice, carrot juice, yeah. That's great stuff, actually. Beet juice and carrot juice. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Take care, folks. If you made it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. I probably won't register, but we appreciate the try.